all about writing with Ben and Sara.
Welcome to All About Writing, the podcast that covers everything about the world of writing from the inside out. This is episode 31, part 4 of our series on marketing. I'm Sara, here with my co-host Ben, who is an award-winning, best-selling author and ghostwriter, editor, and publisher.
And I'm Ben, here with my co-host Sara, who's an award-winning, best-selling author, screenwriter, editor, and TED Talk presenter. And today, we're very, very happy to have with us Valerie Biel, who is a marketing expert who Sara and I have both known and worked with for many years. A wealth of knowledge, and we're really happy to have you with us here today, Val.
Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. So you guys have such nice long lists after your names. So I wasn't prepared. So I am also an award-winning author. And I am kind of a category or a genre hopper in my writing world. So I write in the children's market, middle grade on up, also do some mystery, fantasy. So I don't do one thing, but I also like to help other authors with their publishing adventures, trying to make things easier for them. And that's where the marketing and promotion help come in. So.
Yeah, and that's where we both know you best from. For those who are listening or watching, Valerie has been the marketing consultant to both me and Sara many times, so we know that you're great at what you do, and we just wanted to have you on board today to just grab one little tiny piece of marketing and talk about that we can help our listeners with. And today, we're going to be talking about reviews. How do you make reviews work for you? And this, like everything in marketing, is a huge topic. So I'm just going to throw it to you, Val. Reviews, how do we make them work for you?
Well, first you need some, right? You need some. And I think sometimes this sounds like, I don't know, like mystical or something. Like, how in the world am I going to get the number of reviews that actually have an impact? And it feels maybe serendipitous that they just happen. And hopefully I'll get them, and the number ticks up like on Amazon or Goodreads or, even Barnes and Noble or, any of the sites. Now you're in Canada, Ben, so that would be what, Indigo for you? Is that your main? Indigo, yeah. Yep. So interestingly enough, I had just talked about this with another group, and I kind of do a 3-prong approach on reviews for my clients. Well, and for myself too. I just did this myself. And I throw the blurbs or the endorsements into this category too. So this would be in advance as an author when you're asking before the book comes out, other writers, authors, maybe probably in the same category or genre that you write, you're asking them to please read in advance and give you a blurb. And those are mostly used for like publicity purposes. You might put them, on the cover of your book. You're going to use them in the materials you send out in advance. That sort of thing. And sometimes we get a little, I don't know, maybe flustered about asking other people for those reviews. And we shouldn't be, worried about that. We shouldn't be overly, self-conscious about asking for those, because probably you're getting asked for those too, right? And you usually are probably a nice person and you say yes when you can, when your workload is, enough to allow you to do that. Right now, I have a list. Should I see how many people I owe reviews to?
Yes, please.
I've got 7 on this list right now.
That's terrible.
It's not
terrible.
By the end of next month. So I'm not sure when this is going to come up, but I've got a 6-week span. I can do it. It'll be fine. I swear. So anyway, but I think those sometimes then with those, there's maybe what we call like the pie in the sky endorsers or blurb writers, where you maybe have rubbed elbows with somebody rather famous at a conference, or you have some sort of connection to them that's, they might not be your best friend, right? Or you're in your critique group, or you're not writing partners with them. And I think you just write a very professional email to them, give them the really good, firm information. This is who I am. This is where we met. This is what I write. Here's the blurb. Here's a sample chapter, all that kind of stuff. And I usually don't put attachments on those emails just because it's, things get caught in spam filters. I usually have links to any extra materials. And then I'm really firm about the date, the publication date is this date. Ideally, we'd like to have, any endorsements or blurbs by this date. And if you can ask people in person, that's even better. But most of the time, we're far from each other. But sometimes those review requests end up maybe not being a review, but they might turn into something else. So there is a relatively famous best-selling author who I have had been like the room sort of monitor for at different events, and I've introduced her at different events. And I asked her, and she said, my publisher's telling me I really shouldn't be doing these. Mainly, she's getting fed things from her publisher to endorse, right? And she said, but I can offer you a guest blog post on this really wonderful blog that's 7 very famous thriller writer women who then gave me great attention for and outreach to that audience, which is a very an audience I have not honed for myself yet. So you never know, right? So I say be brave, send those requests out, but don't be surprised if you don't get any answer at all. But you got to try, right? I hate that. I hate that feeling. I go to my computer and I read for typos and then I hit send and I just go ugh. So everybody feels that way. I talk to people who shouldn't feel that way, who I feel like are so far along in their career, and they also feel that way. So, but that's just the beginning of the whole review process.
Right. So that's a good question. Now, my first thing I'm thinking about there is time. This is something that we always want to reiterate to all our listeners about marketing is you can't wait until the book launches to start your marketing. And the example you gave just now, Val, about getting endorsements before the book launches, how far in advance of book launch would you suggest you start this?
Well, and it depends on whether you're traditionally publishing or whether you're independently publishing. So for me, I was in control of the time frame because I do independent or self-publishing. So, but if you're with a traditional publisher, they're going to want to have that cover, relatively ready by what? Well, Ben, you would be able to answer this too. 9 months?
Well, 6 probably. You want to have the book done 9 months prior. All the endorsements by 6 because you're pitching to Barnes and Noble and Indigo 4 months prior. Yeah.
So for independent publishing, if I set 1 month in advance because that's when I uploaded my final cover. For making sure that I had author copies for my launch, and then I knew that they would populate through with just getting one final proof from like Ingram Spark or KDP. From each of those platforms. So, and that's, that's essential that you have some of these to start with. And most of these reviewers, now I keep these in a spreadsheet. So, so I have like the pie in the sky reviewers mixed in with like the authors I've known for years, and we trade review favors for each other. And we generally like each other's writing. It's not like we're like, well, I'll review yours if you review mine. It's like, oh no, I'm excited for your next book. Please send me the arc. It's a nice thing. So I keep this all in a spreadsheet. And then when I have the links available, I ask them, for like Amazon or for Goodreads or even BookBub, once I have populated with like the pre-sale link and that is visible to review, then I go ahead and send in an email that stuff out to these people and say, okay, now you can load them in. Amazon, you have to wait for publication date, but if it's a pre-sale up on any of the other ones, you can put it in then. So you're in good shape. And most of them do it. Sometimes they don't. And in which case, then I put those people's review in the editorial review area of usually it's Amazon, but there's a space for that in Ingram Spark too. So, and this would be things that your publisher ought to be managing for you if you're traditionally published. So I can speak from one perspective, but I know what it looks like from the traditional publishing perspective too. And that's just one of the 3 kind of like 4 components of reviews, because then you want to make sure that you're asking your regular readers for reviews. And I am so surprised at how many people forget to ask at the end of their book for a review, like in the author note. Like, hey, if you like this book, your review matters to me. It matters to everybody else. We're fickle that way, right? I mean, like, if I don't know an author and I kind of like, oh, look at this, like you see them maybe in the paper or something, or, some, trade magazine, I go to Amazon and then I'm like, so when did this book come out? How many reviews do they have? I mean, I should be like less susceptible to this. But I expect there to be a certain number of reviews at a certain point. If somebody's like kind of limping along and their book's been out a year and they've got like 10 reviews, then I'm a little worried, right? Then I think, why? And I mean, maybe they're all good reviews. That's fine. I mean, that's better than having 10 bad reviews. But it's an interesting thing to me how people don't shepherd this process along. And it's not super hard. It just should be part of your launch process. But ask everyone, please do this. It matters for the visibility of the book, particularly pre-advertising. So if you're going to start doing like Facebook ads or Amazon ads, those people don't know you at all. And they're going to pop over and they're going to use the level or quantity of reviews as that litmus test, just like me. The other thing, though, is editorial reviews. So this isn't the blurb writers. This isn't the regular reader reviews. These are editorial services, things like Kirkus. If people who are listening or watching haven't heard of that, that is a relatively well-known review service that librarians and teachers often know about this if you write in the children's market. School Library Journal or Library Journal for the education market. School Library Journal matters to the school librarians. Publishers Weekly, Book Life. There's a one called Book Reporter. There's all the ones associated with all the big publications. Now, the majority of us aren't going to get a New York Times book review, but who knows? If you're a debut author with even a mid-sized press and you've got something really neat coming out, it may pique the interest of the reviewers at those big publications. It's a little more difficult to get any traction there if you are a indie pub author. Traditional published authors at some of those big ones are going to have a little bit more cachet, to get the attention. But you should try. I was lucky enough for Haven for my middle grade novel that came out in the fall. This one I sent over to School Library Journal and I was like, will they do it? Will they not do it? And they did do one. So I was really pleased with that. So, it's again, just sort of like asking some of these more best-selling type authors, you're not going to get 100% on all of it, but it's still worth trying. But then review services. And I don't know, Ben, if you've used any of these, for your authors when with your publishing company, like NetGalley. There's another one called Edelweiss or Above the Tree Line. And these are places that publishers often have accounts, and that brings their costs down a little bit to, send those books in. And those are services where readers are signed up and they see all the new books coming out, and then they can say, yes, I'd like to review this. And then there's a decision point where the person who's managing this for a publishing house can say, yes, I'm going to accept you as a reviewer for this ARC. And then also, if you don't know what this means, ARC, Advanced Reader Copy, is what that means. And those are the books that go out either in electronic format, digital format, or potentially paperback to reviewers in advance of the publication of the book. So I like NetGalley. There's some other ones that are kind of more, they're usually like slightly more reduced price that are hit and miss. Hidden Gems is one of those. Book Sprout is another one. But there's now an entry point into NetGalley that allows you to do 1 month for $99, and it's through a company called Books Go Social. And it allows you to have, that ability to go in without being with a publisher or having that publisher account, which is very pricey. If you're a member of the Independent Book Publishers Association, IBPA, there's another tier level where you can buy like the package to be over on NetGalley. With that package, with IBPA, you have that ability to say no to certain reviewers. Like you can look at their accounts and go, this person always reads sci-fi. What? They're not going to want to read my romance novel. Like this is going to be a bad fit, right? Please don't read my romance novel and say you hate it,
Right, yeah.
That's a really good point about trying to pick your reviewers if you can. I realize often you can't, but I remember when my first sci-fi book came out, it was traditionally published, And so my publisher had gone and found all these reviewers. One of the first reviewers that showed up on Amazon, I didn't even know military sci-fi was a thing, but I got this book, so okay, here's my thoughts on it. And I was like, oh no, like somebody did not do their research to get this into the hands of the right person, and it is a really good point.
So yeah, so there's that, and so that's one reason why if maybe an IBPA like membership and then doing that, especially if you're going to put a lot of books out, might be worthwhile. Or hopefully your publisher, if it's a smaller press, has a membership that way. Yeah, it's an interesting world out there with some of these things. It's like, please, you're not required to read a book just because it was given to you for free. Like, please don't think you need to. So I've had good luck with NetGalley. I just did NetGalley for my mystery, and 200 and maybe 20 people signed up to review it. Maybe we're at about the 8-week mark from the very first sign up date, and I think I've gotten 15 reviews from it so far. They do send you, either way you do it through IBPA or that Books Go Social, they do send you the spreadsheet, and you are allowed to email those reviewers and say, hey guys, thanks so much for reviewing, or downloading. I hope you've had a chance to read it. So I just sent those emails out, and then I put the links in. And there's a lot of people from different countries there. So then I was trying to grab the links that were appropriate for where they reside. But for $99, that's not a bad deal. But those are the three things. And then always asking, people to the readers to review. And that's pretty much it on reviews. You've got to be diligent, and I think spreadsheets are your friend. I don't know, a lot of writers maybe don't like spreadsheets very much. Is that too right brain, left brain? I don't know. I like spreadsheets.
Well, but I think that just goes to show too, the marketing part of writing is the business part. That's as much as maybe you want to be the creative and you want to have all that in order to succeed. Even if you're traditionally published, you're still running a writing business, and with that comes the spreadsheets and tracking and follow through. That's just part of the job. I mean, I think to deny that, as much as Ben and I joke about how we don't like marketing, to deny that this is not a huge piece of the puzzle is to kind of set yourself up to fail.
I think it is. There's a lot of magical thinking. Usually that comes with first-time authors, debut authors. And it's like, look, the unicorns and rainbows and glitter and all that business, just because that book has been, birthed out into the world does not mean it's going to, be found. It's, it may be the most, momentous thing for you in your world at that moment, but you have to convince other people it is also, a good deal for them. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but those reviews matter in terms of getting, I think, a good return on your investment in advertising dollars, because I really hesitate to tell people to do any advertising until they have, I would say at least, if it's a brand new release, it's not that big a deal really. But if it, at least 20, 25 reviews, I think shows that you're doing things right in the first weeks of your publication. I probably should go check and see how many I have. I'm giving this advice and I'm like, how many do I have? I know for the one book, I've got to be pretty close to 30. That might be my lowest one. And that's a new release.
I know that some of mine are low, but it's so interesting because, once you get to like book 4 or 5 in a series, it's like, they aren't reviewing every single book in the series. That's just not the same thing. But I think like, especially for you, you have standalones and you're in multiple genres. For anybody who's trying to do that, I think that they'll see, pretty quick traction as they go.
Well, and then go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying, do you have any guidelines for numbers of reviews people should aim for? Like, are there any magic cutoffs with Amazon or anything like that?
Oh, there's that thing that floats around. You need 25 before Amazon will do this, and 50. I have never heard that's true. There were a whole bunch of Amazon execs at 20 books to 50K conference in Vegas. It's now called Author Nation, and they didn't expressly say it isn't true. but they didn't expressly say it was true. I think that there's an algorithm that is so complicated behind the scenes at Amazon in terms of all the info behind, the metadata and all the things happening behind the scenes for your book and your book's visibility. Quantity of reviews is certainly one of those things, but also if you can, pop onto like the new release bestsellers lists or the bestsellers lists at different times, they start to reward, that kind of visibility, I think, with more visibility. That's anecdotal, cannot prove it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, we're definitely not going to talk about all the in-depths of Amazon here
No,
today.
No, we'll
that
stick with marketing.
require more, much more.
Much more drinking. No, but this was Val, thank you. Like you just spewed so much information for our listeners and watchers, and I'm gonna see if I can nab some of the information to put it in links below. But as we wrap up just our tiny topic of um uh, of dealing with reviews, I'm wondering if there's a place that people can find you, maybe to leave reviews for your books, but hopefully, if they've got marketing needs or anything like that, is there a place that you want to send them?
Yes, just come on over to my website at valeriebiel.com. So it's just my name.com. I've got a work with me tab, and that'll like bring you to all of my information that I give out for free, as well as you can pop on over to my Substack as well from there. So
fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and I can personally recommend, you, since I've worked with you on many of my books with marketing and getting reviews and everything. So but if there's anything else you want to mention, otherwise I think we're about good for today, and that'll be our show.
that's good.
So yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us, Val. And for those out there listening, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our chats. Feel free to leave a review. They matter here too. It helps us a lot. And if anyone is looking for help getting their book ready for the world, not only can you check out Val, but we also can recommend our friends at Cascadia Author Services, where you can find them at cascadiaauthorservices.com, as well as Ben at bennettrcoles.com on Facebook and on Instagram.
And you can catch up with Sarah at sarahdaman.com and on Instagram. Thanks for joining us today. Please reach out if there are any topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll see you again when we next chat all about writing.
This has been All About Writing with Ben and Sara.